So you had a fight, maybe a bad fight, regrettable things were said, feelings were hurt, right? We cannot take that back. Or maybe things have just been feeling consistently hard. Maybe there was not one dramatic fight or event, but it's just been feeling very difficult between the two of you lately. And now you don't even know what to do. What you choose to do in that moment, after the fight, after the disconnect, after the hard moments, what you do, that is the story of your relationship. Because the couples who make it, the ones who have strong, satisfying relationships, they do not avoid conflict. They do not go through rough patches like the rest of us. They just get really, really good at relationship repair. I am so glad that you're here with me today for this episode of Love, Happiness, and Success. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. My background, I am dually licensed as a psychologist, and I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in evidence-based coaching psychology, believe it or not. I am a professional therapist, but I'm also a board-certified coach. And that's why on this show, we're always talking about actionable things and what we can all do to create better outcomes in our relationships, in our lives, in our careers. And I'm so glad you're here with me today. If we're not yet friends on Instagram, come track me down so we can keep in touch over there at Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. And also stop what you're doing right now and subscribe, follow this show on your podcast player, or if you're catching this right now on YouTube, so that we can stay connected and so you never miss an episode. I put new ones out every week and more frequently to come. So we're going to have a good time. Okay, so let's just roll right into today's episode because I have so much to share with you on this topic. And I'm going to be giving you a lot of new ideas, fresh perspective, and specific things to do in order to reconnect with your partner after a hard moment. And the very first thing that I want you to be thinking about, and maybe even jot this down in your journal, is that relationship repair is the superpower. When you're like, why do some people just have really good relationships? What are they doing that I'm not doing? It's relationship repair. First of all, need to just get comfy with the idea that our vision of a healthy relationship can involve conflict and it can involve frustrations and that it does. And we know this from research into relationships around healthy relationships. And I talk frequently on this show about the research of Dr. John Gottman. I'm such a fan. This was a guy who actually put couples into his love lab, like this condo that had one-way mirrors. They would film people doing things and their interactions in the day-to-day. And one of the biggest and most interesting takeaways from this love lab research is that couples who reported being very happy in their relationships, satisfied, feeling good about their partner, having a nice time, they did not have less conflict. And in fact, many of these couples routinely had little skirmishes with each other, but they did a few things differently. And we'll talk about the other pieces of this on other episodes of Love, Happiness, and Success in the future, because there are actually a lot of takeaways and just to share. First of all, the way they entered into conflict was much more intentional and gentler. So that is a takeaway. Additionally, during the conflict, they avoided engaging in really toxic behaviors that are common to the most destructive types of arguments. We'll talk about that another time too. But the biggest takeaway, and what we're talking about today, is that once those conflicts were over, meaning that everybody said what they had to say, doors were slammed, plates were thrown, the silence after, these couples were able to come back together again, re-engage, and then work through whatever that conflict was about in a more productive way that led to a feeling of closeness, of understanding, sometimes resolution, but also frequently not actually resolution. Because another thing here is that most of the things that couples fight about are not solvable problems. They are not things that anybody can have be different. And I know that that might feel distressing, and certainly we can make a lot of improvements with relationships, but we also don't necessarily need to be like, okay, so this is how it's going to be different going forward. Not necessarily. It's really that art of reconnecting and repairing. And I know that you might be like, what? How is this possible? Do not worry. I will explain all of the things. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about the anatomy of a repair attempt. First of all, this begins with being able to actually slow down and step out of the conflict itself. And this sometimes can feel distressing for people who may be socialized to believe that we need to work through things. We need to arrive at a conclusion. We need to find a solution. And also, I mean, even socialization are like these old grandma sayings, like never go to bed angry. I love your grandma. I'm sure she's a real sweet lady, but she is wrong when it comes to go to bed angry, please. Because the reality is that when we are in a conflictual situation, when we are having a tussle, power struggle, passionate conversation, like whatever you want to call it, we get escalated physiologically. We have stress hormones coursing through our veins. We tend to have more narrow trains of thought when we feel escalated. When we are feeling like we're in a conflictual thing, it actually impacts our ability to process information in an organized, logical way. And it also impacts our ability to be able to communicate. We go into this fight or flight or freeze, sometimes fawn type response, where we are reacting to whatever is happening in the moment. And we do not have access to all of the parts of our brains. Everybody wishes that this were different. I wish that this were different, but it is the reality. And it is simply how human beings are wired. And this is something that needs to be recognized when it comes to interpersonal conflict, because if you are trying to make this not be true or not honor the fact that this is actually how people work, you're going to make arguments worse. It is going to be harder to repair them, and more regrettable things will happen because of it. So I just wanted to say this because there are like innate differences in how we handle conflict, how we approach conflict, that need to be recognized and appreciated in the other person in order to be able to handle this skillfully. Because that step one part is, how do we de-escalate? How can we back off? How can we give each other some space? How do we understand that we should not keep trying to talk about this right now, because this isn't going to end well if we keep hammering this in? Like, it's okay to go to bed angry. It's okay to sleep in the guest room. Like, truly, it is okay. All of these things are preferable than continuing to after we have come to realize that nothing good is going to happen, to continue talking about this, but also to recognize not just our own limits, but the limits of our partner. Like, if you are a person who is fine. Like staying in the ring and talking about hard things and, not really that bothered and it isn't impacting you the same way. You need to know if you are partnered with somebody who experiences conflict very differently and have respect for the fact that if you're at a 3, they might be at a 9 in terms of their like tolerance scale, and let them go. And if they're saying like, I think, we have differences here, like you can sense them like trying to back out of this and like saying things like, I need a break. This isn't feeling good for me right now. And you're like, but wait, there's more. Like, just stop. Okay. And let them go. They're going to go into the guest room. They're going to pet the cat. They're going to read the book. They're going to put on their headphones and like chill out, take a shower. Please let them do that because they really actually need to. And if you are one of those people who's like, I am maxed out and this isn't going well and I can't keep having this conversation, please articulate that. And, even a safety word, Clementine, like whatever it is like, I thank you for telling me how you feel. I understand that we have differences of opinion here. I'm confident that we can work through this. I am no longer in a place where I am able to hear what you are saying. And so I need a break. Like that is a really important skill when it comes to repair attempts, because knowing when we're done is a really, really important conflict management skill. And then you challenge your people, you let them go. Okay. Now, another piece of this is the ability to say, I understand that there is some unfinished business here and that this conversation is not over, but the level of escalation one or both of us is feeling right now means that this is not going to be productive. Neither of us are thinking clearly. Neither of us are able to articulate our emotions. And also, just to tell you, when we're in a conflictual space, it impacts our ability to have empathy for other people. And we're talking like on a neurological level, like the way your brain actually works. If you upset someone or put them in a conflictual situation and then test them, their like empathy levels, it's going to be different as compared to if they're feeling safe and calm and happy, petting their cat. Like it is a different experience. So this needs to be known. And then certainly for the love of all things holy, if anybody has been drinking, don't try to talk about whatever has been upsetting you in that moment, because this just adds layers of difficulty in trying to connect or have a non-reactive, constructive, conflictual conversation about something important. And we need to be able to just like self-monitor and say, yes, this is upsetting. I hear that you're upset. I know that we need to talk about this. And I am also aware of the fact that I have had 2.5 glasses of wine, and so have you. And I think it would be better if we talked about this tomorrow. Is that okay? Those are like relationship safety skills that make it much easier to come back and have a repair afterwards. Okay, so that is step 1. Now, the other thing though is the repair itself. So what I was just telling you about is like how to handle a conflict so that it is easier to repair. But let's just pretend that you didn't do any of what I just said right now, and it was actually a really crappy feeling fight. So how do we repair this? It is normal to feel wounded for hours. I mean, even a day or two, if it was really bad, where, there's like that weird, awkward, we're not talking to each other. Like, excuse me, please, thank you, pass the salt. But like, we're not talking about what just happened. And it feels bad, right? And so this needs to be acknowledged. There needs to be a cool down period. I believe strongly that people benefit a lot from calming down, getting their brains back online, using that as a time of introspection to be able to think about, yeah, what was I so upset about? What was it about that was bringing things up for me? How would I articulate that to myself? How would I articulate that to somebody else? And like, there's a lot of value in having a little bit of distance so that you can think about this. You could do some journaling, you could do some processing, you could do some walking, so that you're able to be in a place where you could engage in a different way. So there's a lot of really valuable and important things that happens during that time before the repair attempt that is crucial. And what I would like to challenge you to do, and this is something that I frequently teach my couples, it's something that I teach in my communication classes at Growing Self, is around how can I describe what happened to me from my own perspective in a way that is not accusing, attacking, or talking about what somebody else is doing or not doing. And this is hard. This takes skills. These are abilities that need to be developed. This goes back into some emotional intelligence skills, which I know that we talk about a lot on this show. But one of the things that can be really helpful, and this might be an exercise here for you if you just want to pause this for a second, is to go to your journal or your notes app, or if you're more of an auditory processor, do a voice memo and to be like, to yourself. This is not something to communicate to your partner, but to be able to work through yourself. When they made that comment about, whatever it was, I know that was a mean thing to say, and that hurt my feelings. And the reason that it bothered me is because I was really trying to tell them about how I felt in that moment. I was trying to be vulnerable and express like what was really bothering me. And I felt like they said that as a way of like punishing me, that they were going to shut me down for saying that. And you know what? Absolutely right. That was a showstopper. As soon as they said that thing, I did not want to talk with them anymore. And I'm really disappointed that they would lash out at me like that. So that is what was going on for me in that moment. And then leading up to this, here's what I was trying to communicate. Here's why it was important to me. And just get all of this clear in your own mind before you go back into a repair attempt. This is very, very important because one of the things that I think many people don't realize, but going back to like how brains actually work, is that brains happen in layers. There are different layers of your brain. They exist for different functions. And this is getting like really nerdy, but stay with me. The deepest part of your brain is like a lizard brain stem, like the fact that you don't stop breathing while you're asleep, like brainstem right there. And then the middle part of your brain is the limbic brain. This is an emotional part of your brain. You have this part of your brain. So do gorillas. So do cats, dogs, like any mammal that experiences like feelings has this part of your brain. And it is not conscious. It lives in the dark. It doesn't think things, feels things. This is like an emotional processing center. And that is also standard issue in all humans. And then on top of that, what people have that I think, well, I don't know, maybe very smart dogs have, but we'll see. But is this other like newest layer of the brain, the neocortex. And it is only in this top layer that we think, we put things into words, We envision things, we reason, we're able to think about cause and effect, we're able to have empathy for other people, we are able to understand somebody else's point of view. I mean, plan things, have insight. Very complex thinking happens in this part of your brain. And when we are in volatile, conflictual situations with other people, again, like what I mentioned at the first part of this podcast, is that part of your brain stops working, where you are just like reacting in this limbic system kind of brain. But the point here is that during this time of reflection and taking a quality break before you start to readdress the problem and go into your repair attempt is really related to being able to reconnect what you were feeling, what was bothering you, what was upsetting, what was hurtful, what you were angry about, what was frustrating, whatever it was, with like the why. And in order to do this, we need to put things into words. We need to be able to articulate stuff so that you are processing things, making those connections, helping yourself make sense to yourself. And we need to be able to do that before we can communicate that effectively to anybody else. And I have to tell you something. Some of my couples counseling clients are upset with me when I say this out loud, but we go to hard places on the show together. So I'm going to say it, is that nobody knows how we feel or what we think or what our truth is or why things are important to us or the meaning that we make of things. Nobody has visibility into that unless we say it out loud. And I think that there's that hope, right? That our partner should understand why what they did was hurtful or how it made me feel or how frustrated I am that this keeps happening. And they don't. They just don't. And they aren't going to unless you not just say it out loud in words, but are able to do so in a way that they can hear and understand. And a lot of times, the only time that people say this stuff out loud is in the context of a really bad fight. And we can't hear each other when that's happening. So even if you screamed the things at the top of your lungs, you can be sure that maybe 1% of what you were trying to say actually got through. And so just like understand that and know that the real work, the understanding, the healing, the resolution, if there is a resolution, sometimes there isn't, does happen in the context of that repair, and that you need to know how you feel and why before that repair can be meaningful at all. And so, again, you guys, I know that this is a lot. These are complex things. I spend many, many, many weeks like helping people learn how to do this in coaching and programs that I do around communication at Growing Self. And so I believe in you, and you can do this with a notebook or by taking a shower, going on a walk around the block. Like, you just have to reconnect with yourself. And if this feels hard, just know that these are competencies that a lot of people need to develop, and that there is more support for you. Get in touch with me if you would like to work on this further. But this is really important for an effective repair attempt. And also it goes in, I think, to self-awareness and then the ability to reconnect with your partner. So we talked about step 1 of good repair attempt is like, know when to fold them, right? And be aware of that for yourself and your partner. Step 2 is being able to get clear and integrate your feelings with your thoughts so that you can communicate about this at some point. And then step 3 is actually reaching out. Now, I will also say that you can start a repair attempt even while you're still processing. Even if you're still a little bit mad and don't know exactly what you want to say, you can say, I'm sorry that we had such a yucky feeling fight. I'm still figuring out how I'm feeling. And I know we need to talk about this, and I'm not ready to do that now, but could I have a hug? Totally fine. Or just a little squeeze, or some indication like, yes, this thing happened. It's going to be okay. Not okay right now, but it's going to be okay. Like, even those little moments can go a long way. And even some communication of validation, saying, yesterday was awful, and I hope we can talk about what happened. I want to understand your perspective better. There are also some things on my side that I feel like would be helpful for you to know. And I know we can do this. I don't know that I'm ready to do that yet. What are you doing tomorrow? Like, that's totally fine. And you could also do some repairing around the things that you are aware of that maybe weren't great. For example, you could say, I am sorry that we got into a fight. I know that I got escalated and that I was communicating in an angry way, and I could have handled that better. I still think that everything that I said was valid, and we have things to talk about. So I'm not negating the point, but I shouldn't have thrown the plate or whatever it was, right? Like, you can own that. If there's anything you can own, go ahead and do that. And just like give them something. So, there are small ways of repairing before that. But then I think what is really, really, really important is just broaching the conversation. And that can be the hardest part of all, because maybe part of you is still feeling kind of sore, kind of mad, does not want to have a big conflict again, right? For many people, there is a hope that, well, they could initiate the repair attempt. Why do I always have to initiate the repair attempt? Am I right? So I think there can be some of that we have to work through. And that's also totally valid. That happens. And ideally, both people are initiating those repair attempts from time to time. And I think it is also true that in many relationships, there are different strengths between partners. In relationships, oftentimes one partner has, I don't want to use words like better or worse. We're going to say more developed emotional intelligence skills than the other person does, and is a more effective communicator than the other person is. And that's okay. That's totally fine. Everybody has strengths. And so to think about, are you always the one that's broaching a repair attempt? And instead of being mad at your partner for not broaching it sometimes, although ideally they would also be contributing here, is it also true that maybe you do have more well-developed emotional intelligence skills? You are able to calm down and communicate more effectively. Perhaps you are able to feel calm again more quickly than your partner does. You might have a tendency to carry things around with them a little bit more. Like, it's okay. We do not need to be mad at each other for our differences. Let's find a way to celebrate it. And yay for you that you're able to shift and move into a better place. I mean, the world needs people like that. Truly. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. But so whoever in the relationship does actually need to be the one to go first and say, I am sorry that we had a fight. I know that felt bad for both of us. And I wonder if we could talk about it. Do you feel ready to talk about this? And also, it's okay if they're like, no, I don't. I'm still thinking. Like, fine, I'll check in with you again tomorrow, or, you let me know. But in the meantime, I know that things feel weird between us right now, and I'm aware of this. And I really hope that we can have a good conversation that feels like resolution for both of us. So I am available when the time is right. And then also, I think with a good repair attempt, let's fast forward and you say, can we talk about what happened? And your partner is like, okay. I think it's also very important to say, I know that we were both feeling upset and angry. We both had very strong feelings in the moment. I know that we are each coming from a valid place. And my hope for revisiting this is that we can build some bridges to the center. And I hope that now that we've both had the chance to calm down a little bit, we could have this be a more productive conversation than, the argument that we got into. I don't know that we'll ever be able to see quite eye to eye on this. I know we have differences. I know that most relationship problems are not resolvable problems. You might say that out loud, but I do hope that we could understand each other's perspective and have respect for that. And so I'd love to do that with you. So with a good repair attempt, you're also setting the intention, right, for how you'd like this to go down. Because what was your reaction to me saying that? Like, if you just got into something with somebody and somebody approached you with that, being like, I hope that we can understand each other's perspective. I'm very curious to hear yours. And I would love to have just a respectful conversation where we can both, work towards understanding. Are you going to get mad at somebody for saying that? No, you're going to be like, yeah, great. That's yes, right? And that immediately lowers everybody's defenses and is like, this person isn't out to get me. This is not going to be another part 2 of the same argument. I am safe. And remember what that does to our brains. It helps us stay in contact with empathy, with our ability to think rationally, with our language. So it's very, very, very important that we practice emotionally safe communication when we are re-engaging with our partner in a repair attempt. And I know that this is a lot of information. And again, I spend a lot of time working with individuals and couples around developing these competencies. And so as always, the things that I'm talking about in this podcast is like what it sounds like when people have acquired these abilities. This is hard to do, like a snap on the light kind of situation, but I just wanted to model for you what it can sound like. And then just, sit with them. And then what really works very, very well is for the person who is initiating this to just be curious. I would love to hear more about what was going on for you when we were having that argument. I could tell that you were really upset. I think I was upset. I was having a hard time hearing what you were saying because I was very focused on what I was thinking. But I now that we're both calmed down, I would really like to hear more about your perspective. Yeah. And then listen and manage your feelings in the moment because they might have a perspective that is different than yours. Well, no, not might. They will have a perspective that is different than yours. And that is absolutely okay. So these are some of the skills that go into repair attempts. And these are skills that are learned. Just because you can't do this right now, it is okay. Did anybody teach you how to do this before? My parents didn't know how to do this, and they did get divorced. And so it's like, I didn't have a good model for this. My husband and I needed to go and do some couples work to help develop competencies to be able to handle these moments. And it's still challenging. So just know that, but also know that there are, can be a shared language and even just this understanding, this is something that we need to be doing because we are going to have conflicts. And so what does that look like in our relationship? And, a nice way of doing this is to have in your, how we operate as a couple handbook. I'm kidding. You don't have to have an actual handbook, but, I think that couples do develop over time this either overt or implied system that works for them. Like when we have a fight, here is how we reconnect. And for some people, it is going on a walk. For some people, it's just a simple conversation. It might be hugs after hard conversations. Some people have a standing date where like we will talk about hard things on Sunday nights or whatever, and work this into the plan so that both of you can know that if/when we do have a fight or a conflict, here's what we can expect for the other person, so that it's not like now we're both, not that we just had this terrible argument, but sort of freaking out around like what's going to happen next and not really knowing that. So to have some kind of a rhythm. And certainly you don't need to have a script. It doesn't need to be like at this time, blah, 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 but just like a shared commitment around it is important for us to reconnect. And these are some things that we know work for us. And then I will also say, and this is the fourth thing that I will share with you, is that it is very, very, very important for all couples to be able to use their strengths in these moments and to know what those are. And I think it's, we talked a little bit like understanding what your strengths are versus your partner's strengths, and that one of you might be more gifted in emotionally intelligent communication than the other. That is totally fine. But also be thinking about what are your strengths as a couple? What are the things that you do really well together? What are the things that are shared sources of pleasure or meaning or enjoyment, and being able to reach for those as part of the repair attempt. For some couples, it's physical intimacy. For other couples, it is novelty or a pleasurable experience. They're foodies. There's a restaurant that they like this is where we go and we need to talk about important things and kind of have it be nice. I won't suggest this for all couples, but in my relationship, humor is actually a really important part of it and a big strength. And so we can easily go there, but humor doesn't work for everybody, and it needs to really be like a shared thing. Like if you want it to be funny and your partner doesn't, that can blow up in your face. So just think about like what do we do well, right? And then work with that. But also be thinking too about the mindset. So if step 4 is thinking about strengths, part 5 is that mindset patterns, and being able to adjust your mindset in order to help yourself come into a calm place, a more receptive place, a more compassionate place. And this often starts by being aware of yourself and also having what I think of as healthy humility. That's very important when it comes to repair attempts. And I think it's related to being able to take ownership of things. Because when we have conflicts with other people, it is very easy for us to get fixated on whatever they did or didn't do or said, or the way they said it, or la la la. We are super other focused, and you're not wrong. You have every right in the world to have your feelings that are based on your values, and do the work around okay, so here's why I felt the way I did. Totally valid. And I think it is also true for all of us that we are all annoying weirdos in our own way, and that we can do things that are probably challenging for our partners. We all bring our messes, our moods, our learned defenses, right? Our ways of handling conflicts that we inherited from our parents that might not actually be optimal. And that is also okay. Because the point here is not to be flawless, right? That this is not a black and white thing where one person is all good and the other person is all bad. It is to be able to take ownership for how we are contributing to the system, and also to be willing to show up, take responsibility for our own weird stuff, and then to try again and to repair it, even when it feels awkward or vulnerable, because it will. And going back to another idea that we talk about frequently on the show, growth mindset, is that things that are good, things that are worth having require effort. And that means our ability to do hard things, have courageous conversations, and then do something constructive with that. So, okay, I laid a lot on you, and I hope that some of this was instructive, insightful, helpful. I will be so interested to hear what you think about this. Like if you have follow-up questions, or what about this situation? Or if you have a specific question that you would like me to answer on the show, I would be so happy to do that. I have recently started putting a little Let's Talk link in the bottom of all my show notes. And I invite you to get in touch with me that way. Give me feedback about the show if there's anything that you like about this. Oh, and especially in light of the fact that we're going to be doing promotions on this show. I really want to hear like how you're experiencing that and how this is going for you. So get in touch with me through that link to provide feedback, but also share your questions, or if there's anything that you want to know more about. I'm happy to know that. And then also resources. Okay, so one great free resource that is accessible to you anytime and that can help you with some of this. If you come to my website, so growingself.com, there's a free resources section in the main nav. I have all kinds of stuff in there actually, but what you're looking for is my How Healthy is Your Relationship quiz. You can take this, you can send it to your partner, and it will give you some visibility into the strengths of your relationship. What are the things to grow? But it will also give you visibility into the friction points that you might already be aware of. But the beauty of this is that if your partner also takes it, they might experience different friction points than you do. And this can be one tool to have a calmer conversation where you're comparing answers and talking about how you each feel about things. So that can be really, really helpful. Additionally, another resource is if the work that I was describing, that you had this reaction, which I think a lot of people do, honestly, like at an earlier stage of my life, when my husband and I first got married, like I think I probably would have heard this podcast and been like, sounds nice. And it also sounds impossible, like great ideas. There is no way in heck that we would be able to talk with each other in that way, because like, I just don't think that we could do that. That is valid. Again, at an earlier stage in my life, I would not have been able to do this either. And there's like a path of development that begins by doing something about it. You can do this work with a very high quality, licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in relationships. Ideally, I mean, this is a unicorn, but I want the best for you. So ideally, you're looking for somebody who is a marriage and family therapist who is also a certified coach, who will be able to come in and help you develop the things that we've been talking about today. So mindsets, self-awareness, visibility into the self, the implementation of different practices, practice being the operant word, like you have to practice this, that will help you develop the ability to be able to manage these moments differently with your partner. And how amazing if you and your partner do this together, right? So you're both pulling in the same direction. And I advocate for a coaching model because this is very focused on how do we want things to be better and what is the most expedient way to get there. Psychotherapy can also be very helpful, but the premise of psychotherapy is not necessarily on change. It is on insight, and it is also on the treatment of disorder. So psychotherapy, if one or both of you has active psychiatric symptoms that are really the core of this, so unmanaged anxiety, depression, trauma, substance use disorders, you should go to therapy, because part of what needs to happen there is treatment. So treatment doesn't happen in coaching. Treatment happens in therapy. But also sometimes in therapy, there can be a lot of time talking about patterns and family of origin experiences and why we are the way we are. And that can be helpful. And it is also a part of really effective coaching. We need to understand ourselves and each other. It is very helpful to have compassion for why we are the way we are, why the other person is the way we are. So I don't want to negate any of that. But sometimes with a therapy approach, that's kind of where it stays. And we're talking about feelings a lot. We're talking about the past a lot and not so much like that actionable. So what do you need to learn how to do differently next time in order to have this feel better? And that's very much a coaching mindset. Of course, this is what I specialize in my organization, Growing Self. And if you'd like to do this work here with us, you're welcome to come to growingself.com. You can schedule a free consultation. I have another free resource that I put together last year that is a free, totally free 2-part training on communication that connects, that helps identify some of the communication friction points that you might be experiencing, and that includes like a workbook, activities, things that you can do in order to have communication go better. And so that is actually a really valuable free resource. It's 2 like video-based sessions with me. Anyway, go to growingself.com, the free resources section, and you will see that too. And then very lastly, I'm going to be doing a new thing this coming fall that I'm really excited about, which is a program that I've designed for the purpose of helping couples improve their communication in a very direct way. And this is going to be a multi-week program with me where we're going to be meeting consistently every week live. This is not an online class, but this will be learning things and then doing the work in the moment during this. There might be a little bit of homework, but I'm really designing this to be an experiential process where you're actually getting a lot from the sessions themselves. This will be in a group format. You do not have to show your face. You do not have to share. Some people might want to, but this is not like a process group. This is really more like an experiential class that will teach you communication competencies. We're going to be going into some emotional intelligence stuff, some self-awareness stuff, so that you can have a lot of like big aha moments. You will be able to learn things about your partner that might be pretty interesting. And so I'm really excited for that. And so I will also share that particularly if your partner has been resistant to the idea of going into marriage counseling or relationship coaching with somebody like me, that's valid. I mean, to be in that kind of environment, it's intense. Like it is emotionally intense. People don't know what to expect. A lot of people have had not so great experiences with therapists in the past, which is crappy, but it is also true. So they might be like, I don't know. But this can be a low-key way of people coming in and learning in an organized way, having it be really valuable, having it be actionable, having it be positive, having it be relevant. And like, here's how to apply this to your life is going to be the big takeaways. And so there might be less resistance to getting involved with this type of growth experience. And even if your partner doesn't want to do it with you, which I certainly hope that they would, there can be a lot of benefit to doing this on your own, because as you improve your ability to communicate, it will have a positive impact on your relationship and on the responses that you get from your partner, whether or not they do the work with you. If you are managing yourself well, you will get better results in most cases. So anyway, all right. That is all for today. Thanks again for spending this time with me, and keep in touch with me. Go to that Let's Talk link if you want to share what's going on or follow up with other questions or provide me with feedback. I'm always learning too. And I will be back in touch with you again next week with another episode. All right. Take care.